Today is bound to be a fun video because one, I love talking about Jupiter, and two, we're talking about a Sagittarius placement, duh. Hola my beautiful lotus flowers, welcome back or welcome to my channel. If you're into nerding out on everything astrology, spirituality, and self-transformation, this is the community for you. Today is all about having Mercury in Sagittarius, and what this means is that at the time you were born or somebody else was born, Mercury, the planet, was moving through the zodiac constellation of Sagittarius. And if you're not quite sure what the energy of Mercury entails in astrology, then I will be leaving a pre-recorded clip before we talk about this placement that tells you a bit more about Mercury in general and what it means in astrology. So be sure you watch that if you're not so sure. As for talking about the placement itself, we'll talk about general traits first, and then at the end of the video, I'll give a couple empowering tips based on the traits that we talked about. So that way I'm not just telling you like, oh yeah, you're this way and you're that way. I'm actually giving you some advice on how to work with this placement if you do have it, so that way you can empower yourself better. So be sure you stay tuned for that. For a brief introduction to the planet Mercury, in case you're not familiar with it. Mercury is considered the quote-unquote messenger planet in astrology, ruling over thought, communication, how information is mentally processed, our intellect, routines, and our mental instincts. Mercury is actually the ruler of two zodiac signs, both Gemini and Virgo. Gemini is an air sign and Virgo is an earth sign. Wherever Mercury is at in your natal chart will tell you how you express yourself in regards to what Mercury rules over, such as how you communicate, how you think, etc. But it is very important to pay attention to whether Mercury was retrograde at the time you were born, as this can definitely alter how you express your Mercury placement. And the way that you identify that is there will be a little RX symbol next to your planet. If you're looking at a birth chart that provides this information, you'll see a little retrograde symbol next to this planet symbol, and that will tell you if it was retrograde at the time you were born. This can manifest for so many different ways for so many different people, so I won't be talking about if the planet is retrograde, but a lot of times the traits I talk about, a lot of opposite traits can manifest for this person. Like for example, say the Mercury placement usually makes the person really good at communication. Well, if it's retrograde, then there's potential that maybe you struggle a lot with communication instead. So keep that in mind. Now for the general traits of somebody who has Mercury in Sagittarius. Before we talk about the traits, it's important to remember that Sagittarius is the mutable fire sign ruled by Jupiter, symbolized by the archer. Number one, this person may be a visionary with a very far-reaching mind, always thinking of ways to expand and look toward the bigger picture of life. If you're not familiar with Jupiter, Jupiter is basically considered the planet of higher thinking and expansion, which is often why it's considered the planet of travel as well. When Jupiter meets Mercury, there's actually a bit of a clash, and when Mercury is in Sagittarius, it's actually what we call debilitated. And I'll leave a little definition of what debilitated means right here on the screen for you in case you're not sure. But when Jupiter meets Mercury, the planet of intellect and communication, you get a mind that is constantly wandering, dreaming, and visualizing about something much greater. And this is actually where the clash happens. This sounds like a really great trait to have, and in many ways it can be, but if you have this placement and you've noticed a lot of pushback from yourself, like you have a lot of internal struggle, then if you look at these two planets just purely physically, you have Mercury, the smallest planet in the solar system, and then you have Jupiter, the massive planet in the solar system. It's literally massive. And so what we see is somebody who, you know how people say like your eyes are too big for your stomach? It's like that same thing, but it's like their mind is too big for their reality. Hopefully that made any type of sense. But what I mean by that is that they can just be, they have such an expansive mind, so many ideas, so many thoughts, so many things they want to do, explore, and experience. But But what happens is sometimes this causes them to jump the gun on things. And what happens is they get impatient, or they tend to kind of skip over all of the like minor details or the smaller things in life, or they don't even enjoy the smaller things in life because they're just so busy thinking about other things that just seem so far away to them at the moment. And that's where the debilitation of this can come into play. And this is how, if you have this placement, you may have experienced this. But on a more positive hand, they do tend to think quite optimistically as well, because they are such a big believer and because nothing is too big for Jupiter. This person channels that into their mindset. They tend to have a very positive mindset in that sense. Like, they don't think that anything is too big for them to achieve. And because of that, they really don't like pessimism. They always like to keep the hope alive that something can happen for them or something can happen for somebody else. And they don't see why anybody would doubt it, because no is just not necessarily in their vocabulary all the time. But that's when it comes to big visions. Like I said, it's kind of more on the day-to-day spectrum of doing the normal things or the smaller things that we don't want to do to achieve that bigger vision. That's where they might struggle. Number 2, there is likely a constant need for some form of mental stimulation, especially from intellectual studies or subjects that feed their restless minds. Mercury being in any of the mutable signs, mutable meaning that these signs have more adaptable traits and they like change, this creates someone with a restless mind in some way or another. For Sagittarius Mercury, there's a constant need for fun, entertainment, and some type of intellectual brain food, such as different studies. Especially when the trait combines with Jupiter's desire for expansion, you have someone who loves to try new things or learn about all types of things, etc. On one hand, this may cause them to be very prone to overthinking or just kind of being absent, like daydreaming, and kind of in the sense that maybe a Mercury in Pisces might. And it's actually funny because Jupiter is still connected to Pisces. It is the traditional ruler of Pisces before Neptune was discovered, and then Neptune was assigned as the modern day ruler of Pisces. So when you think of Sagittarius, there are a lot of parallels between Sagittarian and Piscean energy. And one of those things being the tendency to daydream and always be caught up in this bigger vision that they have. And it can also cause them to overthink about it. Like, they might have there's most likely a lot of activity going on in their mind. And that's why they crave stimulation and entertainment in some sort. But if they aren't being kind of dragged down by this overwhelming thought process they tend to go through, or by their daydreams, then they do prefer to have a more lighthearted attitude about everything. They prefer to have fun, and this is why they crave entertainment as well. This is what really brings them happiness, like maybe watching comedy shows, watching movies, going out and actually doing things. Or this might even be the type of person that enjoys like museums because they get to learn about things. They probably enjoy philosophical conversations, things such as that. If you're enjoying this video so far, please be sure you don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, and leave a comment down below if you have Mercury in Sagittarius, or if you know somebody who is, or even if you don't, just leave your Mercury sign down below because I love to know who's watching. And be sure that you head over to Patreon to check out some of the tiers I have available, because it is now open and I am just unleashing all types of in-depth readings over there every week. Number 3. They're probably quite outspoken and unafraid of being bluntly honest or standing up for themselves and others. Like I mentioned earlier, Sagittarius is one of the fire signs, and because they're also the mutable fire sign, it brings a quickness and a wittiness to them, giving them what I call the tongue of fire. And their mutability means that they can be very quick with their retorts, perhaps before thinking about whether they should say it or not. And this is something that can happen with a lot of the mutable signs, especially like a Mercury in Gemini or Mercury in Sagittarius, because these are the air and the fire signs, the mutable air and fire signs, which gives them a extreme quickness. When you think of air and you think of fire, you think of quickness, more so than Virgo and Pisces, which are the mutable earth and water signs. They're a bit more slow moving. But when it comes to a Mercury and Sagittarius, you definitely don't want to get into an argument with one, even though they might enjoy debates, especially if it's on a topic that they're interested in. You probably don't really want to get into a heated argument. You probably don't want to get into a roasting competition with them. They can be very, very quick on their toes when it comes to their words. And one of the amazing things about this is they're not afraid to stand up for themselves. The Jupiter energy comes into play here with the way that they speak their words. Likely they have a very powerful stance when they speak.
Scarlett, obviously your character could have easily just been kind of written off as the sexy one of the team. How important is it that
Really? Have you seen Chris Hemsworth?
Of course, this may not always be true. Depending on what aspects are aspecting this placement, you may actually be more in your mind than vocal. But for other people, the way this might manifest is they might be quite a vocal person. And if they are a vocal person and they're not more in their mind than anything, then you see somebody who is definitely not afraid to stand up for themselves, not afraid to argue for themselves, whatever they feel they need to do. And if somebody around them is being disrespected, they also do not stand for that. They will gladly stand up for other people. And this kind of gives them the more justice-oriented energy that is also sometimes associated with Jupiter itself as well. And it's because of this that they might naturally have an influential stance in people's lives. Like people might actually look up to them or look at them as a powerful role model or figure, and might really respect them. But on one hand, they might also do or say some controversial things as well. It wouldn't be unlike a Mercury and Sagittarius to kind of shake things up a bit and do things differently. Number 4, they cannot feel caged in or held back in any way. This is a placement that definitely values and craves adventure, freedom, new journeys, new paths, etc. And they need to feel able to carry these out. And this is largely because of being connected to the energy of the archer, which is their symbol. And if you think about the archer symbolically, the archer is constantly trying to hit a target, and it doesn't matter how close or how far that target is, they're going to hit it, and they plan to hit it. And this is also very Jupiter energy as well. These both tie in together. And it is largely because of this trait that this placement absolutely hates feeling restricted in any form. They want to be able to target practice on whatever they want. They want to believe in something. They want to go for it, and they have their eye on the prize no matter what stands in their way. So there can almost be a similarity to Leo placements where overindulgence can occur because they want to have their cake and eat it too. Like sometimes no, or the idea of self-restriction is just not part of their vocabulary. But unlike Leo, where it might show up more as a material matter, for a Sag Mercury, they may be a bit reckless or irresponsible, like failing to slow down enough in order to assess their situation and how they should properly move forward. Like they may get too caught up in the like, well, I want this, so I'm gonna go after it. And it may cause them to make reckless decisions or do impulsive things that they end up regretting, or it ends up taking them further away from that vision. They may often know exactly what their target is and what they're aiming for, but they may not know how to get there and make it too caught up in the idea of wanting that vision now, in the here and now. And this is what can, cause some issues, but it is also what can give this person great ambition to figure out, to think about what they need to do and to act it out. And again, what's going to influence this heavily are obviously other aspects in your unique natal chart that affect this and how it manifests. Now let's talk about a couple ways that somebody with this placement can use it to empower themselves. Number 1, it's going to be very beneficial to this placement to learn how to work with their restlessness in a way that allows them to use it positively rather than hindering themselves. Like we mentioned earlier, because of the combination of all their traits, between being Jupiter ruled, between being symbolized by the archer, between being a fire sign and a mutable sign, there's a lot of potentially anxious energy that stays in the mind and makes them either overthink or just decide to skip all the small steps completely and not think practically at all. Really, the key here is to create some type of practice or some type of routine that helps with their patience and with their ability to slow down and think about the next step practically. Because if you have this placement, don't let your visions become a detriment to you. you have these beautiful grand visions and you can achieve them. Nothing is off limits to anybody, but especially with Sagittarius placements, you guys are the visionaries. You guys are go-getter visionaries. And you see the target and all you have to do is figure out how to get there. So, you know, practices that help you slow down and develop patience and develop a practical plan towards your goals, it's going to be different for everybody, but just some of my suggestions would definitely be having slower practices. And something that might be really good for Mercury and Sagittarius is perhaps maybe meditation or yoga. And depending on how active you like to be, you know, yoga might be better because it can slow you down, but it keeps you moving and keeps you something to be focused on. So like I mentioned earlier, you might have a rapid fire mind. You might have a lot going on in your mind, and it can be hard to center and focus. And even though meditation is great for that, it might be better to start with yoga, because essentially yoga is a form of meditation with added movement that actually keeps your mind and body engaged and develops that relationship. So that's just one suggestion. There are various things you can do, but that is one suggestion that I have for you. Number 2 is that they must be aware of being a bit oblivious or ignorant at times, which could also hold them back. And what we see here is a tendency to potentially dream about taking action and dreaming about everything they want versus actually taking action. They might daydream, and then never ever take any step into the future. And they might forever be optimistic about it. But if they're forever optimistic and not looking at the reality of the situation sometimes, then it's great to be optimistic. And that's really going to feed your energy to go towards your goals. But if you never allow yourself to be like, okay, yeah, being realistic, this situation is not the best, and I should probably figure out a way to move forward from it so that way I can move even closer to that dream that I keep dreaming of. And if you never realistically assess your situation, if you never realistically assess the people you're surrounding yourself with, the environment you're putting yourself in, then that's not good. You know, that's not good. You can remain optimistic about the outcome that comes from you making these tough decisions, but you do need to realistically assess your lives sometimes. And, you know, I would recommend maybe sitting down with yourself and maybe writing about it, or just having a regular assessment, whether it's monthly or whatever it is. Ask yourself, like, what's working for me right now? What do I enjoy? What's bringing me joy? What's not working for me? What has made me feel a certain way? What has made me doubt myself? Whatever it may be that's holding you back, it's good to assess those. And then from writing those 2 things down, or from collecting those thoughts, you can then start to make a plan for the next month. So that way you can slowly move out of these places that maybe aren't serving you. Once again, if you enjoyed this video, be sure you don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and leave a comment down below telling me your Mercury placement and what you thought of the video. And head over to Patreon, because I will have in-depth readings coming out weekly on some of the major current planetary transits that are happening. So be sure you go over there, and you can head over to the LaBlue's Facebook community, where we talk a little more about using astrology and spirituality for self-transformation. But if you want even more, you can head to my Instagram at Marisa LaBlue, where there's a more personal side of my journey as well as additional content, and watch these videos until the next video comes out, because they'll help you so much more on your astrological and spiritual journey. Until I see you next time, thank you so much again for being here. Adios.